It was also the emerging of NGOs during that time, right? You have the coterie of social workers, but more it was the trade union movement. And political parties were being formed like everywhere you go. You know, everybody had small groups discussing the issues of the day. And the issues were very, very burning because, I mean, you were not recognized or treated as human beings, you know, and you want that respect and you want to be treated and recognized as such.
For the non-Trinidadians among us, give us a period, 19, when this was going on. Because
this would have been in the late 70s, the early 80s. It was happening. And during 1985 or so, when we had the NAR coming into office and structural adjustment was taking place left, right, and center in the country. They said that our public service wage bill was too high. Workers were getting too much money, right? And they made a bold step in trying to kill the trade union movement, right? Car plants like Amalgamated Industries went into receivership. Neil and Massey just fire workers and closed down. Up to now, workers haven't even been paid from Amalgamated Industries, Neil and Massey. And CTC Electronics, right, which was in McCoy, right, they went into receivership. Something that they called receivership during that time, which they said that the workers would have a share in the company and things like that. But it was a structural adjustment that was taking wave throughout the Caribbean, not just in Trinidad. So a lot of companies were closing down. A lot of industries. We don't have industries again in Trinidad. We had Mayfair knitting mills in Diego Martin, right? I mean, that is a no-no now, right? That's where we used to get all our stockings, our pantyhose and stay-ups and, you know, things like that. We don't have that again. We import almost everything.
How did you become involved in capital?
All right. I left the trade union movement in 1990, after the coup. Yes.
Why did you leave?
When you look at it, the trade union movement had reached a deadlock. In fact, the Transport Industrial Workers Union had more or less reached a deadlock with structural adjustment, right? A lot of companies, industries were closing down. So they were losing members, therefore you lose revenue because the membership is what brings in the revenue in the union to pay wages and salaries and give you a strong voice. So members and staff were taking a decision, right? 10 years from now, even 5 years from that time, where would we be? So a lot of them were leaving, and I just followed suit. So I left also with some of my colleagues and went abroad. So I stayed abroad for about 2 years. And being outside there, somehow I was not comfortable. I say, but I mean, I can't. There is so much fire in me that I can't exert it anywhere in this country because I don't belong here. Let me go back home. So I did in fact go back home. When I came back home now, of course you had to look for a job and stuff like that. So I got 3 months here, 3 months there. I worked at Kariri for 3 months. I worked at Trinidad Aggregate Products in Londonville for 3 months, and you know, it was like that I was going. CAFA was born in 1985. They set up a secretariat office in Trinidad during those early years. And in 1992, they had an advertisement. They were interviewing for administrative staff, so they wanted a secretary. So I did in fact apply and was interviewed. one of my brothers called me to say that because I had left my mother house number with them, and he called to say that CAFRA called and said to call them. So when I called them, who interviewed me, it was Gemma Tangning and Kathy Shepard were there at the time. And I got the job there. So I started off at CAFRA on the 2nd of January 1993. And it's a building of, what should I say, feminism that really started a strong bond with feminism. It was very, very interesting because you were getting to meet and to hear and even to go to conferences, feminist conferences that was taking place throughout the Caribbean and internationally. And you were getting to meet strong women like Andai from Guyana. I met Joan French from Jamaica, right, another strong feminist woman, and Sonia Quales from Curacao. It was very, very interesting. And I mean, when you sit down at their feet and they started to talk, it reminded me very much of being in the trade union movement. It was a learning experience. You just want to hear them talk, and then you would ask the questions and stuff like that. Right, so my consciousness in feminism, really and truly understanding it, came out of being at CAFRA. What I did was administrative work there, and having a mentor like Kathy Shepard, right, is something I'm very, very proud of. I mean, you had the best women you could think about in CAFRA, lobbying for gender equality and for the rights of women in health and reproductive rights, and for recognition as women as farmers, right? That's what you were getting out of it all.
Tell me, in terms of the work CAFRA has done over the years, what you think is what pops out at you, what you hold dear?
It's building consciousness in women, educating women that they have a voice. They are in fact strong. They can in fact be strong people, and not be afraid to speak out, to be politically involved, and to chart your own course, and also to build and educate other women in leadership, right? I think that was the most amazing thing for me. They gave you that opportunity, that you can be a leader also, and never be afraid of anything.
Do you think that CAFRA is very conscious of the difference and differences around race, class, that shape this Caribbean?
Yes, certainly. Yes. CAFRA being a regional organization, right? Mm-hmm. We had women. In fact, we still do have women from all different race, all different class, and from different religious backgrounds also, right? And it's an organization that makes you feel that you have, regardless of your religious background, your culture, your ethnicity, right? There is always a safe space in CAFRA for you, right? We never marginalized women, and I think that's wonderful. I became the national rep of CAFRA in 2003. And that was a different ball game completely. It was like you had to manage and to lead now a sister organization from the secretariat, right? So we became the sibling of CAFRA secretariat, and you had to draw up your programs and projects. So we dealt with issues like abortion rights, a woman must have choices and a free space, good leadership qualities, and recognizing the International Women Days, right, to end violence against women, you know, and it's also a lot of managing the affairs of CAFA Trinidad, in the sense that you have to be in touch with all the members. I mean, everybody must have I must say over democratic because you have to give everybody a safe space to talk, to air their views. You know, you don't cut down anybody. And then most of the time I'll put a position forward, right? And then 3 people may talk and come up with a different point of view and how you can tackle that situation differently. And their position and the way that they want it go is what will override my whole plan. And I just go with the flow. And I think you make people feel safe and comfortable by doing that. And they are brave enough now to take on other challenges on their own.
I'm going to pause here and invite anyone from the audience who may have a question for Tara.
Just wondering, like, you know, what has become of CAFRA, like, you know, or if anything else has come out of CAFRA, any other work that we could look into.
CAFA Trinidad, before I became the national rep, had a project, commercial sex workers in Trinidad and Tobago. That was a large project that CAFA Trinidad had undertaken. We had a researcher, a chief researcher who hired other researchers to interview sex workers. And the revelations were quite startling. And it was only in Trinidad that they interviewed commercial sex workers. Tobago workers were also interviewed. So that was one of the major projects that CAFA Trinidad had undertaken. CAFA Secretariat is on a recess, I would say, at this point in time. We had some internal issues which CAFA Trinidad was leader in trying to deal with those issues. And we put in a caretaker coordinator. It's not functioning at this point in time, right? There's nothing happening at the CAFA Secretariat, which is in Trinidad. One of the other things that the CAFA regional office had taken on was the CARICOM single market and economy, which was a big thing. And from time to time, they would have, they had workshops and seminars throughout the different CAFA countries in the region, right? And that was quite successful, I would say, and very, very useful, although I think in the Caribbean we are still struggling with the single market and how do workers have a free flow from country to country without being harassed by immigration and others, you know. And what we find happening now in Trinidad is a lot of them are coming in illegally. And of course, when you do that, you face the deportation issues.
Would you introduce yourself?
I'm Nirmala Chita. I'm like a student. I'm also an MSc student and also a member of CAFRA. And I'm sort of an admin assistant at CAFRA Regional, looking after CAFRA Region. The Secretariat owns a property. And when CAFRA took it over in like 2009, there was a money problem. We didn't have any money. So since then, CAFRA TNT, we took over and we have since rented the property, and we have a substantial amount of money now that we can do some repairs, and very soon when that repairs is done, we can reorganize, and young people are always welcome, because we have, that used to be the documentation center, so there is a lot of good material that can be used by researchers and so on.
I wanted to ask Tara if she would again go back to the period of the 70s, from about 75 onwards, and to look at and to try and think through that period again about the way in which the trade union movement was so closely aligned with the left movement.
Oh yes.
This is why
that's an interesting
when you
point.
make that, think it through from that because when you talk about why our marching and so on, I see that we was upset. We in fact were part of the left.
Certainly we were in fact, we were in fact, during those early years, the 70s, it was socialism rising up throughout the world, and Trinidad was no exception. And the trade unions were more or less aligned to socialist parties in Poland, in Russia, in Cuba, and wherever, right? And it was the left. And the Concerned Women for Progress came out of a left movement, the left-wing movement of the trade union movement. And that is how we really emerged. Thanks, Pat.
It was the People's Popular Movement.
Yes, the People's Popular Movement. Right. The Bank and General Workers Union had the People's Popular Movement, and it was headed by Michael Alls, Mario Alls, Alec Ross, and James Lynch. Michael Aberdeen was part of that also. Also, there was the February 18th movement, which was led by James Millett and Ted Carrasquero and others. But it was amazing during that period. I mean, it was really overwhelming. You just had the passion and the driving force to be out there. You wanted to read every Marxist, Leninist literature you could put your hand on.
I was just going to say that socialism at that time was like the thing to get into, you know.
Yes, it was.
I was a student at the time, and and she mentioned Krishna Gowan, and he lived opposite my house, and when during that time they had bombings, you know, people would throw Molotov cocktails, and they had bombed his place, and the young men, the young fathers in the street, they will all come together and spend the night. They would be playing cards and so on, waiting to see, you know, if they were coming again, because all these people were very active and, you know.
You asked about the activities that we CWT, and again I want to jog your memory because by me jogging you might know. The activities that we were involved in, apart from the consumer protection movement, do you remember any other areas that the CWP or any other events that the CWP were part of?
Apart from the consumer protection movement, I know we had the demonstrations at on March 8th. We had those placard demonstrations. Then when Penny became Miss Universe, she had that first year she had a beauty pageant at Jean Pierre, and we did in fact pick at that pageant. Can you?
Well, I can, but I just wanted to jog your memory more. When I remember we went up in Laventil.
Oh yes, we had a lot of those. They were educationals on a Saturday, right? What we did, I remember Thelma was there too, right? We did we had gone through the beatum, right? And we had our pamphlets and our leaflets, and we would talk, going from house to house. We did a lot of that. And we were talking to the women there, and some of the women slammed doors in our faces and said, this is the best life that they have, because the then Prime Minister built all these houses on the beatum and gave them one, you know, and they were contented by living there, but in their homes they had nothing, you know, and they had hardship, but they were quite comfortable with that, you know, so a lot of them run us out of the place. You know, so we did a lot of those things, and our group also had political consciousness raising sessions. You know, I think sometimes you all would have met at my house. Just to go back, in my teenager years, I left my parents home at a very early age, before I was 20. I felt I had to do something to change this whole world and make it a better place for everybody. So one day I just get up and say, I'm not taking this life anymore, and I just left and went out. Oh, at that time I was I had just left the job that I had at Baton, being now affiliated with the union. You know, and I just left and went out on my own and got an apartment and was living on my own at that early age. At one time I was at First Caledonia, and I think that's where you all came and had sessions by me, you know, and it was a lot of political consciousness raising that was taking place at that time.
Can I ask one more question? Well, just to establish that one of the things the CWP actually did do is all the issues that would emerge later, like equal pay for equal work, anti-abortion, consumer, you name it, everything was raised
during those sessions. Yes.
We were just beginning to start
Yeah.
the dialogue. Why is she still a feminist today? And if so, what do you understand by feminism today as it has evolved in your own words?
All right. Before I answer that, okay. as you raise the issues that we rose during those early years, I want to go back to one of the sessions. In fact, several sessions we had at the OWT office on Charlotte Street with Lynette Sibaran, right, who was a young attorney at that time. And one of the main issues that we brought a breakthrough in was legitimate and illegitimate children, which were appearing on your birth paper during those early years, and we had it removed. And now, I mean, there is nothing like that on your birth certificate again, you know. So that was one of the issues also that we brought forward.
And rape, we had the first forum on rape ever in Trinidad.
In Trinidad, that's right. Yeah.
With Carol Gobin.
Yes. Yeah, Linda Rajpaul and Gayatri would have been part of that too.
Feminism.
Feminism.
What does it mean to you?
All right. I would say yes. I still consider myself a feminist today. In the early years, I would have said I am a radical feminist. Right now, I don't think they use the term radical anymore, you know. But feminism is still relevant. It's still necessary in today's world. And a lot of things are being done differently now from what it used to be. And you have so much more information. You can just go on the internet and you get a whole lot of information. How it is translated and your interpretation of it would be different, because you no longer have that person-to-person dialogue and conversation that used to take place during those early years. You get up in the morning during that time and you have one bright idea and you just want to look for a Marxist or a Leninist, right? During those early years, to roll off this idea and have a serious conversation with them, right? And they give you so much food for thought. Now, How many people now can you pick out that you can converse with in that way? You know, a lot of things have changed, but I would say a lot of improvement has taken place for the better. Right? Development is a must, and change is evolving and happening every time or every day as you go along. You have the Facebook now and social media, which is a whole different ball game now. And sometimes you would say it's good, sometimes it's not so good, and one has to be careful in how you use it. But I think we still need to have that one-on-one dialogue and have more conversations like IGDS have been having. Is something that must take place all the time. It's a different ball game of feminism now, you know. But in truth and in fact, it is. I would still say it is feminism, because women still need their space. You still need to be recognized. You still need to be respected. I mean, when an outsider a man can just walk into a primary school and snatch up a little 9-year-old girl. I have nieces who have daughters who are 9 years and 8 years, and when I think about all of that, it just drives me. I say, but what are we doing about these things? You know, I mean, you could just walk in anywhere and pick up a little girl and go and rape her, and what is going to come out of it? You know, what is coming out of it in a positive way?
For those of you who are not watching or don't know the incident, there was an incident
in Scarborough,
in Tobago, where a man walked into a school and picked up a 9-year-old,
and he had on a mask.
And I think even the recent incidents in Tobago as well, with young girls disappearing over the past couple of weeks.
Yes, for the past couple of weeks, certainly.
Needs to be done.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I think a lot has to be with education, and when I say education, I don't mean in the classroom. You need community conversations by educating these young girls of who they are, how to respect themselves and respect others and their bodies. You know, you need to teach them about their sexuality. And that is not happening in most cases. And as we talk about the rape of this 9-year-old girl, I think in some of the school in Trinidad, a couple of months ago it had happened also, but because the school is not black wrong, you know, men were just walking in the school and assaulting girls.
Okay, I have, Tara, one more question for you. Looking at your work that you have done before, the CWP, the violence, how do we respond to what are the evolving challenges? If CAFRA was given $1 million right now, what project what would you do with come?
I would do work on try to end violence against women and girls on the whole, and also to have educationals for women that they have choices, right? And in health and reproductive rights, I think that's an area that seriously has to be looked at. Health and reproductive rights. How do you, if a young girl as young as 13 or 14 years, right, is raped and is pregnant, right, you must have a safe clinic that she can go to and get counseling and have safe abortions. I would like to see these things happen, you know, clinics where you can walk into and put your position forward and get counseling in a serious way, and not just a one-off thing. After you're counseled the first time and you're not sure what you want to do, go and sleep on it, take a couple more days, and you can go right back, you know, and talk again about it and be advised again.
Tara, I know I said the last question, but I just have the last. if you got your $1 million, that's what you would do. But
That's
how do
what I
you
would
see? Do you think tell me what's the role of an institution like the IGDS
All
in
right.
something like that?
In something like this. I think IGDS, you can have more hands-on projects, practical projects, instead of just theoretical. You know, I find that students could go into the NGO movement and work for a month or 3 months or 6 weeks, get the practical feel of things, let them get the passion for it and develop their own projects that they would like to see through. After you graduate, you can come back, you know, and say, I want to see this project through, and give some time to doing that. That's the activism in the whole thing.
I will end here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Tara, for spending the time with us.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this.
Okay.